Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. So it's an all Orc and Goblin affair today, the nomadic tribes versus the Troll Horde. 2000 points, pitched battle scenario. You guys know my list already, so it's an Orc War Boss, Bedazzling Helm, Effigy of Mork, -2 to hit, Great Weapon, War Boar, Big Boss, BSB, Banner of Butchery, Glowy Green Amulet, Cav Spear, Charm Shield, in a big bus of 16 Boar Boy Biggins with all the trimmings. There's level 4 Odd Knob on Wolf with a Power Scroll, Dispel Scroll and the Idol of Gork. Another Orc War Boss on a Wyvern with the Ogre Blade, Talisman of Protection. And then there's 9 Chariots, 3 Orc, 4 Goblin and 2 Snotling. On to the Trolls then, from left to right. You got 4 Stone Trolls. Moving on, you got 2 Troll Hags, right? So there's the sort of rocky Troll Hag there. He's rolled up the Fireball spell. And the next Troll Hag, which is the General, and he's got, or she's got, the Talisman of Protection and the Big Smarts spell, which is the reroll stupidity checks from the Troll Magic deck. Then moving on, you've got another 2 blocks of 4 Stone Trolls. There's a group skirmishing, 6 Savage Orc Biggins at the back with extra hand weapons. There's also the Mage, right, Ogdra's Swamp Digger. And he's rolled up Ravenous Recourse, which is also from the Troll Magic deck, which is +2 movement, Conveyancing spell. There's Wind Blast and Mythical Pathways from the Elementalism decks. And then on the right hand side, you've got 2 Giants who are kind of just standing base to base with each other there. And behind them is an old Big Boss on Chariot, Frenzied with BSB and the War Banner. So as we're deploying our armies, I'm starting to think about tactics for this game. If you're not familiar with the Troll Horde list from the Arcane Journal, essentially they've got 2 main big special rules. So it's the reroll regens for non-magical attacks, right? So most of those trolls and the hags are going to have 5-up rerollable regens. There's also this Big Smarts signature spell on the Troll Horde deck, right? So all of their mages have access to troll magic. They can automatically take this signature spell, which allows them to re-roll stupidity checks. You can also cast it, so you do stupidity checks during the start of turn subphase, and then during the conveyancing phase, you can cast the spell. And if a troll unit within your command range has just failed their stupidity check, they can immediately take it again in the enchantment phase, right? So it makes their stupidity a lot more reliable. The trolls can also use the command range leadership characteristic of friendly characters, right? So it's going to be less common that they're going to fail the stupidity, and hope those trolls, with a bit of luck, of course, should keep going forward. I'm thinking, from my perspective, that it might be quite tough for me because everything in that army, with the exception of those small unit of 6 Orc boys, is extremely tough, hard to shake down, right? So I'm relying, with my army, of course, on fast movement and impact hits, but a lot of those chariots might just bounce off those trolls, so it's a bit scary. They've all got 3 wounds each. They've each got the 5-up armor save, the 5-up regen, re-rollable, right? So it's like 3 5-up saves that each of those troll units have, so that's going to be hard to get through. Therefore, impetuous could be a bit of an issue for me because everything's impetuous, apart from my big blob of boars that have the thinking hat. Everything's impetuous. Including my Wyvern, right? Now, my Wyvern is the one thing that I have which could be a bit of which is probably giving Sam a bit of fear ahead of this game because he's got the Ogre Blade, right? And so the coming in at strength 7, D3 wounds is going to be nasty for any of those giants. But he's essentially got 4 giants, and the problem is with the Troll Hags especially, and the giants though, is that if you don't kill them on the charge, they're going to strike back, and they're going to strike back with a shed load of attacks. They're a bit swingy, of course, because it's all rolling on a chart. But those giants have the ability to just headbutt your Wyvern, knock some wounds off, and then stomp on him and kill him. And my boars, the hags have some crazy rolls on the chart where they can just drop a massive template and just sort of take off loads of my boar boys in one go. So it's going to be hard. My level 4 rolls up the Vindictive Glare, the Evil Sun's enchantment, Itchy Nuisance, of course, a signature spell, and Here We Go. Pretty pleased with those spells. Itchy Nuisance should be invaluable at dropping the toughness of some of these giants. And Vindictive Glare, although they do get their regen, they don't get to re-roll the regen because it's a magical attack. And of course it's strength 7 D3 wounds, so hopefully the Vindictive Glare should come in handy too. So turn 1 goes to the trolls, and as you can see, they're deployed quite narrowly. They don't have much on the flanks there. They've got to stay close to each other to make sure they're all within command range of the characters so they don't fail the stupidity checks. And they've got that big boss BSB who's frenzied, of course, behind those giants, making sure he doesn't get baited out on a random charge to sort of give away their BSB too early on. They don't advance up on that flank, right, because they're trying to stay out of charge range of the Wyvern. I don't blame them. They do advance up the middle, as you can see, those trolls hurrying forward, and the 2 hags, one of those hags leapfrogging over that swamp using the Mystical Pathway spell. And that's really how it ends. I think they tried to throw a fireball at one of my chariots, but that is dispelled. And we move on to the nomad's turn. Now, on the nomad's turn, the first action is for me to cast some spells, right? So I'm trying to get the Here We Go off, and immediately he tries to dispel it with his hag and is outclassed in the art. But it's quite good because he actually manages to dispel it. So there's quite some soft rolls these days on the miscast table, right? Because you can miscast and still cast your spell, and you can be outcast in the art and still dispel the spell. So that happens even though he can't do any more dispels this turn. I get the Itchy Nuisance off on that hag, the closest hag to me, the Rocky Hag, dropping the toughness to 4, and I get the Evil Sun's enchantment off as well. And we just all move up as well, so obviously 2 close combat armies here. We're looking to smash each other up. I want to get the charges, especially with my chariots, right, so I can get all the impact hits, and use my speed to sort of pick the charges I want and hopefully get some flanks. Most of my stuff moves up and stays out of charge range of the trolls, right? I do have the speed advantage, so hopefully I will be able to get the charges, with the exception of my pump wagon there, which has just gone a bit too far, but I didn't really think too much about it when I was moving forward. My Wyvern moves close enough to kind of force the giants to make a move, to force them, because obviously the Wyvern has a big charge distance of 18 declarable, so the giants now have to make a decision. What are they going to engage with my Wyvern, or are they going to try some kind of shenanigans? Wolf chariots up the flanks, out of charge arcs, ready to charge in on my turn 2. Possibly whether they like to or not, if they fail their impetuous. And I try and get the Vindictive Glare off, which hits and wounds, but is regened by the Troll Hag. Trolls turn 2, and there is a stupidity fail on this turn, so the trolls on the left are shuffling forward a little bit. Apparently the rules as written in this edition, the trolls don't actually have to move forward their full movement values of 6 inches when they fail their stupidity, because they can just shuffle forward a little bit and not move the full distance. So that's how we're playing it. They try and get off the Ravenous Recall spell, which is dispelled. The Rocky Hag then, in the centre, facing down this pump wagon, charges in, smashes it up by dropping a big template on it, injuring the nearby Orc chariot in the process, and then sort of overruns behind my lines, as you can see in the picture. The second hag, the general, comes up in front of my boars, sort of giving my boars a kind of charge into that troll hag. Now I'm thinking, kind of fancying my chances there. He is pretty tough though, because he effectively has 4 5-up saves, right? Because he's got a 5-up armor save, 2 5-up regen saves, and Talisman of Protection for a 5-up ward, and he's unbreakable, right? So I guess the thought process there was that this troll hag is going to just tank this charge. However, my boar boys have a lot of attacks, right? Because they're 10 wide, so they've got lots of strength 6 attacks coming in from the boars and the riders, not to mention a few impact hits as well. So that will be a bit dicey, but I do fancy my chances at that charge. The trolls in the centre position themselves right in front of my chariots to sort of force the impetuous test. Now that was a bit of a mistake on my part. I should have kept them a little bit further back so that they couldn't get within 3 inches of me, because if I'm under 3 inches I don't get the impact hits. And of course in this edition you need to move in a straight line as possible, the shortest distance as possible when you're making a charge, so which means those chariots, if they do fail their impetuous, won't get impact hits when they go in. And the giants sort of do a similar thing on the right hand side, so they want to force the issue for my Wyvern, betting that together they will be able to defeat the Wyvern. And they're kind of operating as one unit at the moment because they're staying in base-to-base contact, which of course you can do in this edition. You need to stay 1 inch away from enemy units, but you can go 1 inch away from your own units. And they've positioned themselves in such a way so that I would have to charge both at the same time. Now, we had a bit of a lengthy discussion about this as to sort of what the rules say. There is no real stipulation in the charging rules as to the order of importance of them. But essentially, if it's a lone model, there is no wheeling you can do to bring more models into base to base, because wherever you touch that model, you're going to bring all of the models, which is one, into base to base. So in other words, you have to move straight forward to it, meaning that I would have to contact both of the giants if I charge the giants, which means I have to charge both of them. And I suppose as it's written, that makes sense. It also makes me less likely to kind of want to put my Warboss on Wyvern into both giants. I think I could handle one giant on its own, because I think coming in with a sort of 5 strength 7 attacks and D3 wounds, I think there's a good chance I kill a giant on the charge. But then you've got another giant swinging on me and stomping me and stuff, then I could go down. So not sure what my Wyvern is going to do there, but we are in a position now where the charges are on for Nomads turn 2. Nomadic War turn 2. So the first order of business is to try and get off the Here We Go spell. But I miscast and drop a big template down on the back of my boar boy unit. But very fortunately, I either fail to wound or pass my armor saves on the boar boys, and I don't lose any of them. The shaman himself loses a wound, but I'm relatively unscathed by dropping a big template. I found that miscast isn't that deadly in this game, and it's so easy to get the spells off. Things really are stacked in favour of the caster. For better or worse. I get the Evil Suns off, as you can see in the picture, and I also get the Itchy Nuisance off on this Hag, which I'm looking to declare a charge on in the charges phase, dropping its toughness down to 2. So that should be quite tipping the odds in my favour for this charge now, because even my impact hits are wounding them on 2s, and so I should be able to go through this Hag with a bit of luck that he doesn't just pass all of his regens. So I declare the charge then with the boars into the Hag. I fail a bunch of impetuous tests at the bottom there, and I've got a frenzied chariot anyway, so that everyone's charging. And I get 2 orc chariots and a goblin chariot into that unit of trolls in the middle. My frenzied chariot decides to go into the Hag. I was in 2 minds. I wasn't quite sure how many attacks it would take to bring down this Hag, and so I thought, right, let's just send in this orc chariot into the flank, add a few more impact hits from this boar chariot, and make sure I get the job done. My Wyvern doesn't fancy those 2 giants at once, but he does have a line of sight to the trolls behind those 2 giants, right? So he actually does a flying charge over the heads of those giants and lands on those trolls behind them. Plus there's a goblin chariot going in as well to add a bit of impact there as well, not to mention the snotling chariot waiting for the remaining moves phase, or the compulsory phase I should say. So in combat, the Hag is just crushed. The frenzied chariot, however, overruns a miserable 3 inches and is just blocking my boar boy unit, which is quite unfortunate really, because the boar boys would have had a nice overrun into those trolls. If they were to just go through that Hag, they would just go forward into those trolls had my chariot not got in the way. And it's hard to tell at this stage in the game what impact that is going to have. I did have the option, of course, to send my chariot into the trolls in the middle, but that combat didn't go my way. So the chariots in the middle bounce off the trolls, one of them dies, 2 of them flee, and it was pretty much an epic fail. Obviously not getting my impact hits reduces my chariots to just a bunch of orcs and goblins sort of charging in with spears. So it's not, I was unlikely to defeat 4 stone trolls with great weapons, right? So yeah, that was a fail. Perhaps I should have sent in that frenzied chariot, but maybe I would have just lost the frenzied chariot if I sent it in there, so who knows. On the right hand side though, the Wyvern carves up sort of 1.5 trolls. The pump wagon joins the action, but perhaps it shouldn't have, because it just ends up dying and giving away some combat res. The Rob on the Wyvern does win the combat, however. The trolls fall back in good order and we follow up to remaining combat. Trolls turn 3. So the trolls on the left-hand side charge into my boar boys. I can't countercharge the infantry unit, and of course I've got my chariot in the way there, so I can't maneuver anyway. They pass their stupidity check, of course, when it matters, and they're able to get the charge. Now it's 4 stone trolls coming in. I do get to fight with my second rank, of course, because I've got cav spears, and I've got lots of attacks there. But, of course, without the charge, we're all just attacking at strength 4, so it's not ideal. Let's see how we get on. The trolls at the bottom also declare a charge, but they fail. And that would have been particularly devastating to get another unit of trolls in the flank as well. But fortunately, they don't make it in. The frenzied big boss is teleported with the mystical pathways over the forest. So he's kind of more on the left-hand side of the board now. And he's also, because he's on the other side of the wood, won't be able to be seen by my wyvern if and when my wyvern wrestles free of those trolls on that side. And of course he does that, right? So the wyvern beats the trolls big this round, and the remaining one flees. He restrains and turns to face those giants and the rest of the battlefield. Now the trolls coming into my boards, they kill my BSB, and I'm particularly pissed about this because, well, they do 2 trolls attacking that BSB, and you know, he fails his armor saves and his charmed shield and just goes down. They've got great weapons, so I guess that was always on the cards. But I kind of really regretting now that charge from my frenzied chariot into the hag, because they didn't really need the chariot to defeat the hag, and without, I could have got an overrun into those trolls and defeated them before they had a chance to. Now I've lost my BSB, you know. So, but you know, that's how it goes. I won the combat because I've got static combat res even without the BSB. I've got you know, banner, the big red flag. I've got close order and a rank. Although I might have lost my rank. Let me see. Yeah, I lost a rank in the combat. But yeah, so we kill one of the trolls anyway with our attacks, and we force them to flee. So we win the combat, but at the cost of my BSB. And now, if you look at the sort of state of the board in the picture there, you can see there's lots of troll units kind of behind my line. So you've got the hag, the BSB, the 2 giants, and the trolls are nearer me than they are my opponent. And so the battlefield is kind of flipped. And it's looking, typically, I would say, for the old world games that I've played, kind of messy battle lines. Nomadic War turn 3. So I get the itchy nuisance off again on the other hag, dropping it down to low toughness, so I will wound it on 2s with everything, even without my banner of butchery. The wyvern, however, has some choices because he's free now. He can see a bunch of different targets. He calls a war. The giants will be tricky as there's 2 of them, right? I could charge 1, maybe kill it, but then, you know, I'm facing the wrong direction. Do I turn and face the other giant, or what do I do? There is of course Ogdras right in front of me, who's wide open, but then I kill him, and then it risks kind of overrunning into the giant or trying to hop over the giant. I could, we discussed, overrun pursue with my fly move, meaning I could jump in onto the mage, kill him, and then overrun using my fly, and then sort of hop over the giants with my overrun. There is the Savage Orcs, of course, which is an easy charge target. They can't flee because they're frenzied. But then the big boss on the chariot is kind of facing me there and would quite likely get a charge on me. Only strength 5, of course, but you know, lots of attacks, impact hits, could be a bit deadly coming into my wyvern, especially as he's also got you know, a BSB and the war banner and possibly a flank charge. So that's lots of static res as well. So I decide to go into the Ogdras in the end, smash him to bits, and then do the overrun, hoping to get over the giants with my overrun. However, I only roll a 7, and it turns out that my overrun would put me sort of on top of the giant's base. And we weren't sure how to play this, because obviously you're doing a normal move in the remaining moves phase. You can't land on top of someone, right? So you've got to land in front of them or to the side of them. But a pursue move is kind of a little bit different, and sometimes we couldn't think whether you would actually stop in front of them or sort of bounce through them as you do like when you're fleeing. we ended up playing it so that I would have to stop in front of him. I think we rolled a d6 for it, actually. Anyway, we ended up playing it so that I would end up charging the giant, which is not ideal, but again, not the end of the world. It's just that obviously by the time that combat happens, it's going to be the troll's turn, and I'm going to be fighting 2 giants instead of 1. But there we go. I'm fighting the giants. It was going to happen at some point. The chariots charge into those fleeing trolls, right? So I've got 1 frenzied chariot and 1 goblin chariot charging them, and we end up cutting them down because obviously they're already fleeing, and the goblin chariot catches them and kills them. The boars just do a big reform to face the opposite direction, back towards my board edge, because that's where the enemy units are. So trolls turn 4. Now there's hardly any magic for the trolls to do now. They've only got the 1 hag with the fireball, but he's charging. So he charges into the boars. The boars countercharge, and they do get enough for a few impact hits and furious charge and whatnot. The second giant charges into the wyvern, as expected. The savage orcs charge into the goblin chariot near to them, who flees, and then they redirect into the frenzied orc chariot, and that's on. Now, the nomads win all 3 combats. Rob, on his wyvern, cut down one of the giants with the ogre blade. It falls on him, but he only suffers 1 wound from the fall. And I get lucky with the attacks from the second giant and be able to largely just shrug them off, and pass my saves on the stomp. I think he only rolls 1 for the stomps, so really sort of lucky from the giants there, and that's how it goes with giants, really, because you're rolling on a table, you're rolling to see which way the giant falls, you're rolling to see how many stomps you get, and so it's just luck of the dice. The savage orcs also bounce off the orc chariot, which pursues and catches them, so I win that combat as well. And the important one, though, on the left, so the hag. Now I was confident with his toughness dropped to T3, with my evil sun shining spell. He's still -1 to hit, right? So I'm hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s. I'm hitting on 2s. I'm wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s. And I've got loads of attacks from my ball boys and the balls and the impact and everything, but he only loses 5 wounds and he's still left alive on 1 wound. Unbreakable, of course. Just kept passing those regen saves over and over again. And so the hag gets to strike back, and the hag rolls the mother attack, and he's just basically able to pick 1 model in the fighting rank, and they just lose D3 plus 1 wounds, just boom. So he just gobbles up my war boss, just like that. There's nothing I can do about it. I mean, the war boss is not even in base to base, like all the way on the end of the unit there. But yeah, I mean, that's just horrible, horrible chart that the hag can roll on. The troll hag and the bone grinder giant, they just have a deadly, deadly giant chart. They're just a good notch above the typical giant on their strength of their attacks. So yeah, it's turn 4, and I've lost my war boss and BSB, and things are starting to swing back in favour of the trolls. Things were in my favour, obviously killing the hag general on turn 2 and getting rid of 2 units of trolls. Now losing my war boss and BSB, and I've lost a bunch of chariots. Things are starting to swing back in the favour of the trolls. At the end of the combat, then the hag falls back in good order, and the boars hold for a charge on the next turn. So it's Nomad's turn 4, and I get off the Itchy Nuisance once again on the Troll Hag. I think I've managed to get that spell off every turn in the game so far. Throughout the whole game, actually, I get Itchy Nuisance off every turn, and the Evil Sun Shining as well, which is the extra AP and rerolling 1s to hit. So I managed to be quite lucky with my sort of magic dominance in the game. The boars charge the trolls. Now Sam did well moving those trolls very close to the combat last turn, so I don't have much space to pursue 3 inches to get my furious charge and impact hit. So, but I do have the option of charging the trolls. Perhaps I can break them and follow up into the hag. The wyvern on the other side defeats the second giant with the ogre blade. Just does a ton of wounds. He falls on me also, but I only suffer 1 wound again. I've been quite lucky with all these thunderstomps. And now my wyvern's still alive on 5 wounds, and he's free. My goblin chariot in the bottom right there rallies and is coming round the back. Meanwhile, on the top of the board, my chariot, which has sort of not made it into combat until now, who previously just caught those fleeing trolls, impetuously charged the lone troll who rallied last turn, loses the combat and flees, and so there is this kind of lone troll on 1 wound maraudering around the top of the board. Yeah, let's move on to turn 5. So the game is tensely poised at the beginning of turn 5. I've still got my war boss on Wyvern and my frenzied orc chariot who are free, sort of in the middle of the table. There's an orc big boss on BSB on chariot, which is also maraudering free at the beginning of the table. And of course, my boar boys are locked in combat with this hag. Now the boars have to fight the hag on 2 wounds now, because due to its feeding on corpses, it managed to get another wound. And this big boss BSB, so this big boss BSB just has a little arc of sight onto my boar boy unit. It's kind of millimeters in there, but charges in. And with all those attacks coming in my flank, despite my best attempts, the boar boys are finished off in turn 5, and that's pretty devastating. It's always a big points giveaway when I lose that unit, even though I've still got a chance to claw back some points here, it's looking like we could be heading for a Trolls win. On Nomad's turn 5 though, my mage, who's alive and of course passes his panic test when those boar boys die, manages to swing round the arc of sight of the nearby trolls and do a vindictive glare on the troll hag and kill the troll hag. Finally, he fails his regen save there and loses his last 2 wounds from the vindictive glare. So I managed to claw back some points there. And then we move into turn 6, and turn 6 is really just trying to preserve points from the trolls as they move that last unit of trolls and their BSB out of the way. And I'm out of the way from my Wyvern coming in and sort of cleaning up. I do have my Frenzied Chariot though, which is just in charge range of that BSB, charges into the rear of it, but then loses. I end up losing that chariot in the final throws of the game.
So we tot up the points and it finishes a 10-10 draw. I think the Orcs were up about 140 points or so.
And that's how things end up. And all in all, a really fun game. Obviously, Orcs and Goblins versus Orcs and Goblins is always going to be a bit of a laugh, but really swingy game as well, because I'm effectively up against a unit with 3 mobs of trolls and 4 giants, right? So there's going to be lots of stupidity and rolling on charts and things like that. I had some good luck, you know. I made a lot of Leadership 6 tests for Goblin chariots and things like that. The Trolls actually made some Leadership 5 stupidity checks during the game, which was interesting to see because I didn't quite understand, well, I didn't understand, but I didn't quite believe in the value of Stone Trolls. I thought, why wouldn't you just go for River Trolls or Common Trolls? But actually the 5-up save came in handy several times too, not just the +1 leadership, but having the 5-up save plus the 5-up regen, re-rolling the 5-up regen, kept those trolls alive for longer, even if they didn't have the extra wound that the River Trolls have. I did have the magic dominance during the game though, having a level 4, and also I have a power scroll and dispel scroll, not to mention the Idol of Gork on my level 4 as well, was definitely much more powerful than up against the 2 level 1s and 1 level 3 that I was up against, right? So, you know, he couldn't stop the itchy nuisance all game. His hags constantly had low toughness, and that was a big boost for the nomadic war. With the trolls, obviously the re-rolling regens is strong, but regen saves generally, obviously, it still counts towards combat res, right? So what I was finding is that I wasn't killing that many trolls, but because I was stacking up so much combat res, they were breaking. They were breaking and fleeing, right? So it's a strong list, but it does have weaknesses. Especially obviously I don't have shooting as well. There are many other lists and builds that will be able to deal with all those giants a lot more efficiently than a nomadic war list. I'm still ruining my decision on turn 2 of not charging that frenzied chariot into the hag. If I charged into the trolls instead, sure, I might have lost that combat. Perhaps I would have lost that chariot. It might have even swung that combat into my favour, but crucially though, it would have allowed my boar boys to go through that hag and into those trolls on the left hand side, which would mean I wouldn't have lost my BSB and I could have cleaned up more effectively on that side. But all in all, the Nomad list did a lot better than I thought it would in this matchup. Typically, as I said before, I don't have that much to deal with behemoths, especially unbreakable ones with multiple saving throws. Other than the boar boy charge, you know, lots of trolls and stuff. It's quite likely the boars are going to get bogged down, the chariots are going to get bogged down. But fortunately, I had the edge on deployment. Obviously, lots of units I can have the edge on the deployment phase, and I was able to place the boars on the flank where they didn't have like two giants running into them very early on. Sam did really well by denying the impact hits. Throughout the game, he was moving my trolls right up in the face of the chariots, right up in the face of the boar boys, to stop me getting 3 inches on the charge. And so, yes, that's something I've got to work on for next time. And then just, maybe refining my list, right? I mean, losing those boars every time. I've lost, of all the games I've played with this list, or variations in this list, I've only lost that ball by unit a handful of times, and it's always late in the game. Turn 6, turn 5, obviously, in this game. I'm thinking, okay, I've got a kind of Death Star build, but maybe I should just beef it up even more, just double down and get a few more ball boys in there. So it's just less likely to give away its points at the end. Something to think about. Yeah, anyway, if you like this video, guys, there's plenty more Orcs and Goblins content on my channel, and I'm hoping to get some more Dwarf content up there at some point too. So give us a thumbs up for the old world, like and subscribe, and thanks for listening. See you soon, guys. Goodbye.